Hello, everybody. You are watching GMA Sports, and today we're going to be talking all about boxing. So, alam nyo na to, we've got a big fight coming up this weekend. Manny Pacquiao, Yordenis Ugas, August 21, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Sa atin dito sa Manila, that's Sunday morning, Sunday morning. And we want to break that fight down for you. So right now, we've got some guests with us to help us do that. First, our resident boxing analyst. He writes a lot of our boxing content on GMA News Online. Mr. JM Siasat. JM, how are you?
I'm doing good, bro. Thanks for having me here.
And a very special guest with us today also. Former boxing writer for The Athletic. Filipino fans, you probably know him as the author of Pacific Rims. Mr. Rafe Bartholomew. Rafe, kamusta?
Ayos lang, ha? Buhay pa. These days, I guess that's as good as we can ask for. Thank you. Look, I am a consumer of GMA news and sports, so I'm happy to be here.
Manny Pacquiao, Yordenis Ugas. Start tayo with the side that everybody here would be familiar with. No? Manny Pacquiao, recap lang natin. 62-7, 39 knockouts, 8th division world champion. He fought everybody, beat almost everybody. But yeah, guys, break that down for us. No? The scouting report. Who is Manny Pacquiao as a boxer? What are his strengths? Peak Pacquiao pinag-uusapan natin dito. No? JM, why don't you start us off?
Okay, you know what? I think Manny Pacquiao needs no introduction naman eh. If you know boxing, actually even for the casuals, you should know by now who Manny Pacquiao is. Nasabi mo na kanina, Mikel, he is an 8th division champion in boxing, the only one in history to actually get that sort of achievement. Manny Pacquiao last fought 2 years ago against Keith Thurman, where he won via split decision to claim the WBA World Welterweight title. Okay, now, you mentioned kanina yung peak Manny Pacquiao. I really do believe that ang peak ni Manny Pacquiao came around the 2008-2011 era, no? When he was defeating the likes of Oscar De La Hoya, the likes of Miguel Cotto, the likes of Ricky Hatton, Joshua Clottey, and Antonio Margarito. Now, here's the thing, no? When it comes to pro boxing, there is a time in your career wherein you would hit your absolute best, your absolute peak. Okay? Now, kapag na-achieve mo na yon, there's nowhere else to go but down. Yung laro mo, pababa na ng pababa, pababa na ng pababa, okay? It could be gradual in some cases, in some other boxers, mabilis yung pag-decline nila. But Manny Pacquiao at 42 years old, he still has a hell of a footwork, napakabilis pa rin ng kamay, and as they always say, the power is the last one to go. So definitely intact pa din yung power ng Manny Pacquiao. But is he the same fighter? Of course not. That's not even fair to say, and that doesn't make any sense. At 42 years old, I mean, lahat naman tayo tumatanda, and you will see na yung Manny Pacquiao, nag-iba na rin ang laro. One thing that you can actually look at is yung punch output na lang niya, guys. You know, when you look at the fights against, again, yung mga prime niya, itong Manny Pacquiao, he would throw some 1,000 punches in a fight, but you won't see that version of Manny Pacquiao anymore. With that said, Manny Pacquiao, even though he is past it, he is not just a Hall of Famer, okay? He is past that. This man is an all-time great, okay? He is an ATG, okay? He's not just a Hall of Famer. So one thing about Hall of Famers, one thing about all-time greats is that they are always capable of fighting beyond their best, beyond their primes, and they're always beating some Class B fighters out there. We've seen it over and over again. The likes of Sugar Ray Leonard, the likes of Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran fought until he was 50. He still was able to beat Class B fighters. So what I'm saying here, as early as now, I see Manny Pacquiao winning this fight.
Rafe, peak Pacquiao. No? What is it that stands out to you? No? Is it the hand speed, the work rate, the knockout power, the chin, diba? Give us the scouting report on peak Manny.
Peak Manny was everything altogether. It was the point, and I think JM nailed it, that period, 2008 to 2011, when he developed, after he'd been with Freddie Roach for already 7 years, and developed developed his right hand, was a fully two-handed, dangerous fighter, throwing some of the fastest, most unpredictable combinations that you could, no fighter could catch up to his rhythm. his foot speed, the way he was moving in and out, and the combinations he would throw. And I think to me the ultimate peak, yung laban contra kay Miguel Cotto. I mean, like Cotto came to fight. He burst Manny's eardrum in that fight in the second round, and then in the third round, is when he all of a sudden the speed, the activity of Pacquiao just starts to overwhelm Cotto, and it became a one-sided beatdown. But the kind of performance that made you say, "Oh my God, he really could maybe beat Mayweather if they had fought right then." Of course, we wait 5-10 more years until they finally do it. But what can you do? And I think looking ahead to this fight against Yordenis Ugas, Manny is still unpredictable. He still has that speed, that explosive. You saw against a prime champion welterweight 2 years ago, Keith Thurman. He was surprising Thurman early with the way he would close distance and land punches, all that even a fast younger fighter could not prepare for. So he still has that explosive power and speed to catch anyone off guard, and it's enough to force them to fight his fight and be trying to figure out his rhythm rather than dictating how they want to fight the fight to go. And I think he can still do that against Ugas.
Meron na ba tayong nakitang some of those peak Manny qualities na maybe weren't quite there nung Thurman fight, or you're expecting maybe won't be there when he steps into the ring with Ugas?
Okay, first things first, sinabi ko na si Manny Pacquiao, even at 42 years old, even during in this last fight na 40 years old siya against Keith Thurman, he has the speed. Yes, mabilis pa rin si Manny Pacquiao, and arguably siya pa rin ang pinakamabilis na fighter at the 147-pound division. But is he as fast when yun nga sinasabi namin ni Rafe back in 2008, 2011? No, he's not as fast. But he's, it just so happens na he is a hell of a fighter. He has talaga tremendous hand speed na even na bumaba na yon, na nag-decline na yon, he's still the fastest among the welterweights out there. That's how crazy Manny Pacquiao is as an athlete. No, he is just a freak athlete if you look at it. Another thing is yung stamina. Okay, sige. Sinabi ko na kanina na of course Keith Thurman actually went to the body, and of course it adds na yung gas niya na makakapagpabagal sa kanya. Hindi naman sekreto sa boxing yan eh. Sinasabi nga sa boxing, you chop the body and the head will fall. That's true. Pero the peak Manny Pacquiao, kapag sinuntok mo sa bodega yan, magtataas pa ng kamay yan. Come on, give it to me. Diba? He's fought the likes of Miguel Cotto, as Rafe would know, I'm sure. Ang trademark punch is left hook to the body. All right? He's fought up to the junior middleweight division against a man as big as Antonio Margarito. Though, of course, that was not the full 154 pounds. It was a catch weight at 150. He took a lot of body punches dun sa laban na yon. Okay? But yung stamina niya, yung galaw niya, the way he moved in the first round was the way he was moving up until the 12th round. Okay? That's not the Manny Pacquiao you see anymore. And again, yung sinabi ko na kanina is, of course, yung punch output. But when it comes to the technique, when it comes to creating the angles, when it comes to speed, it's not the same. Andun pa rin. Intact pa rin yung kay Manny Pacquiao. I think he's just wiser now given the experience and all the years. Isipin mo ba naman, mahigit 70 fights ka meron sa professional, no? So everything, all of that comes together, and he's still being able to use all of those to his advantage each and every time he steps into the ring.
Ikaw, Rafe, what do you expect to see from Manny in this fight?
Well, that really is the question. I mean, and will we see him finally get old overnight? I don't look. Do I believe it will happen that way? No, I can't bring I've seen him defy expectations in so many ways, and especially in this late career, after the Mayweather fight, after the Jeff Horn fight, where it looked like, okay, maybe Pacquiao's career is starting to go down and he'll look for a nice way out. No. He comes back and is rejuvenated, finds the speed and power and the energy again. So I think he will continue. But I will say, like the one thing that makes me a little bit worried, his first, and look, I understand that training videos, you'd want to take these with the biggest grain of salt. You can't, because how many boxers show their training videos where they look like $1 million and then they come into the ring and really have a poor performance? But still, Pacquiao's early training videos for this, when he first went to Wildcard in LA and started training with Freddie Roach 1 month, 6 weeks ago. And it was the first time in my life I've ever seen video of Pacquiao and thought, that looks a little bit slower. Now, beginning of camp, he's going to have a full camp to get into full condition. Who knows how much he was able to train, before coming to the States, or the intensity of his training, if he was able to reach peak condition. But still, that idea, because he's 42 years old now, and the idea that eventually, the other great cliche in all those sports, Father Time is undefeated. Is that finally coming for him now? I think if he were fighting Errol Spence as planned, I would be much more worried about that affecting the fight than I am now. But because it's Ugas, who is still a very good fighter, but not quite as difficult a challenge as Spence, I'm less worried. But still, I'm going to be watching to see if maybe finally there's a little bit of sign of age in Pacquiao's performance. I hope not, right? But still, it's possible.
Are there skills that Manny is developing as a more experienced fighter, as an older fighter? Like, is he evolving into a different fighter from the one that we were describing earlier, na peak Manny?
First things first, we cannot expect Manny Pacquiao to fight the same way that he did, in his prime, in his younger years. Okay, again, sabi nga ni Rafe, medyo bumagal na si Manny. Okay, that's science. Wala na tayong magagawa doon, babagal at babagal 'yon. Okay, tumatanda yung tao eh. Okay? So, when it comes to that, if you would actually see his approach, especially in the Broner fight, he relies on his boxing skills a bit more, okay, than what he used to do nung kanyang prime. Kasi si Manny Pacquiao, titingnan mo nung kabataan yan, he's like a Tasmanian devil inside the ring. Sasapak lang yan ng sasapak. Wala yang pakialam. He will just keep coming at you. Now, that is something he cannot afford to do now at 42 years old. Bakit? Syempre, mapapagod siya. All right, you cannot expect the man to have the same gas tank, all right, at 42 years old compared to when he was 30. Diba? It doesn't make sense. It does not happen. Kaya nga dyan na pumapasok yung experience eh. All right? Experience comes into play. Yung mga natutunan niya throughout the years, it's a culmination of of the fighter that he is right now. After yung fourth fight niya kay Juan Manuel Marquez, a lot of people would actually say na naging passive, na mas maging cautious na si Manny Pacquiao. And I would actually agree kasi natututo yung tao eh. Diba? He's getting older, he's learning, and marami pa siyang tools sa kanyang arsenal, marami pa siyang weapons sa kanyang arsenal na pwede niya namang gamitin to actually win a fight.
Rafe, what do you think Manny is getting better at as he ages now?
I would say mula nung 2013, basically when he lost to Marquez, that's when we start to see him be a little more strategic in the ring, and maybe it has to do with age and fatigue and that coming in as well, but also because, that was the first time in the prime of his career, or in the superstar phase of Manny's career, that we saw him knocked out. Like, forget, Torre Campo and when he lost in Thailand, when he was, trying to make weight 25 years ago. That's not that time is done. But after that, we saw Pacquiao in, the Rios fight, the Algieri fight, those early comeback fights. Through now, he'll be more of a 12-round fighter. He's not looking for the stoppage in the same way. A lot of the time, the pattern we'll see in some of his fights against some of the second tier, almost champion welterweights, kind of like the Jesse Vargas types, he'll get an early knockdown, second round, third round knockdown, and then the opponent will realize, oh, maybe I don't need to try too hard on, Manny might carry me for 12 rounds. I'll get my paycheck and it's fine. And Manny seems to be fine with that as well. He'll control the fight, land enough punches to win rounds. but doesn't necessarily go for the kill in the same way. And who is that because he's being more cautious after the Marquez fight and is, doesn't want to be countered again? Maybe. Is it because the whole Freddie Roach thing where he's like, well, ever since Manny found religion again, he doesn't go for the knockout? I don't know. I don't like to psychoanalyze Pacquiao especially, but anyone I don't know intimately. So I think he's over the years, he has become that more strategic 12-round fighter who uses his speed and explosiveness to control a fight and keep the other opponent honest and not putting too much pressure on him, rather than just to overwhelm them na parang Tasmanian devil na sinasabi ni JM.
Doon naman tayo sa sa kabilang corner. Someone who's not as familiar to a lot of Filipino fans, 26-4, 12 knockouts. Who is Yordenis Ugas? Why was he selected to be the replacement for Errol Spence? Why him, JM?
Okay, Yordenis Ugas, as you've already said, he's not a familiar name in boxing, okay? He came from Cuba, and I think sa kanyang boxing career, ang pinaka-highlight niya talaga is yung pagiging world amateur boxing champion. Okay? Now, why was he selected to fight Manny Pacquiao after Errol Spence suffered a torn retina, yung injury niya? Okay, kasi last fight niya against Abel Ramos, which he won via split decision, he won the WBA regular welterweight title. Okay? Si Manny Pacquiao, nung nilabanan niya si Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao used to have that regular title. And that was Manny Pacquiao's title heading to the Thurman fight. All right? So when Manny Pacquiao defeated Keith Thurman, who was the real champion of the WBA, he won that championship. So nagka-pandemic, two years na bakante si Manny Pacquiao, what the WBA did was strip Manny Pacquiao of the world title. Okay? So ang ginawa, etong si Yordenis Ugas being the regular title, they actually elevated him to the super champion. Okay? So bakit ko sinabi na ang kanyang career highlight mas maganda pa yung pag-achieve niya ng naging world champion siya sa amateur kasi yon nilabanan niya. Ito, what have you done to actually call yourself a real champion? Okay? If anything, and the way I see this guy is an accidental champion kasi if you would actually have to fight some of the best guys in the welterweight division to hold a belt. Nandiyan sila Bud Crawford. I don't see him beating Bud Crawford. Nandiyan sila Spence, nandiyan si Manny, si Thurman, or doon sa apat na yon. All right? But he became a world champion only because Manny Pacquiao was stripped by the WBA. He was also preparing for a fight kasi on August 21. So, naganda injury na, and he was the one na selected to replace Errol Spence Jr. Manny's dream has always been, at alam naman to ng mga tao, is to hold his farewell fight dito sa Pilipinas. Okay? Ngayon, nagkanda Delta na, nagkanda lockdown na ulit. Sabi tuloy ni Manny na tulong parang nung kailan lang, this may very well be my last fight. Okay? So, if this is going to be his last fight, magiging footnote na, it will boost his legacy, okay? Because he became a world champion. All right, before he was still a world champion when he retired. Pero yung legacy na yun, I think the fighter itself he beat would barely have anything to do with that. Okay, kasi the way I see Ugas, this is a guy who struggled against the likes of Abel Ramos. The last time he fought, a decent welterweight was really against Sean Porter. A lot of people thought he won that fight. I'm not sure about Rafe, but he actually lost that fight by a split decision. So we can maybe do a deep dive into that fight later on. But so legacy ni Manny, I think this is going to be a minor footnote yung pangalan ng Ugas. When you've beaten the likes of Barrera, Marquez, Morales, De La Hoya, Cotto, the list goes and on and on. Where the hell would you place someone as Yordenis Ugas among that list?
Rafe, why Ugas? Do you agree? Is he just a convenient replacement for Spence at this point?
Siyempre, he's convenient. But I will mount, konting defense para kay Ugas na medyo iniiwasan siya ng mga ibang welterweight. Not necessarily because he is an incredible threat. I think dehado siya kontra kay Pacquiao, kay Crawford, kay Thurman, kay lahat na, like all of the big names, but Errol Spence, he would come into those fights as an underdog, si Ugas, but still, because he has that amateur background, because he's fairly big for a welterweight, not enormous like Spence is, a little bit smaller, but still big for a welterweight, good length, very well skilled, and not super famous. I mean, JM just laid out all of the sort of the resume that Yordenis Ugas does not have, and how a fighter looking at him will say, well, medyo sikat na ako. I don't need to fight this guy who is going to, even if I can beat him in a decision, has the skill to make me look less than my best. It's hard to, we haven't seen, I can't, JM, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of a time that I saw Yordenis Ugas badly hurt in a fight. He is like the other Cuban fighters of recent vintage, thankfully not as boring as nakakabato as Guillermo Rigondo, but Erislandi Lara, very well-schooled Cuban boxers, very like tight jab, good defense, not going to make a lot of mistakes, but also not going to capitalize on every mistake that opponents make, not going to push the pace. And often you'll see a fight with some of these Cuban fighters, like say the Sean Porter fight that JM was talking about, when Ugas fights Sean Porter. You saw moments in that fight, long stretches where you think, I think Ugas might be the better boxer of these two. But then he doesn't do the extra thing to win. He doesn't push the fight. He doesn't land the big punch that makes the statement to win the round, that gives him the fight on the scorecards. And then when he loses a close decision in the end, he looks around like, well, bakit? I thought I was the best boxer. But you need to make a statement. You need to do something to win a fight. And often that you don't see that with Ugas. I think that that's both why he is a sort of, he's been avoided to some extent, because these big names, they look at him like, well, I don't gain anything. He's not famous. He doesn't have a belt, or now he does, but he didn't until recently. And like JM said, he didn't really even win that belt in a fight where he should have been able to win it, right? It was more just stripped and given to him. So for all those reasons, he was never a good matchup business-wise for other champion level welterweights. And I think it's a big credit to Pacquiao to take that fight against Ugas, a guy who other fighters have avoided, on less than 2 weeks' notice, after preparing for a southpaw Errol Spence to an orthodox Yordenis Ugas, a guy who, in all likelihood, while I expect Pacquiao to win, that will be my prediction, I think that he won't look as pretty. It won't be as exciting. It won't be the galvanizing performance that sometimes we get out of Pacquiao fights. Say the Keith Thurman fight, that was incredible. I mean, a back and forth fight, the knockdowns, the oh my God, 40 na si Pacquiao, and he's still that good, can beat a prime champion welterweight. That I mean, I remember I couldn't sleep after that fight. I don't think there's a good chance that Ugas can kind of stink this out, as they say in boxing, be defensive, give us, I hate to bring up the memory of Joshua Clady here. I hope it won't be so boring that Pacquiao has to bring out the Pompiang punch, but it's the kind of thing where Ugas is defensively responsible. He can slow the pace down. He can basically make himself look good in there, but not do enough to win. In this era where fighters choose their best opponent, the best style matchup for them at any time, who's the best risk versus reward, who's going to pay me the most money, can I knock out a guy who's much like if I look, you got guys trying to fight MMA and YouTubers now because they know there's more money and it's an easier win for them. I guess maybe we should admit that Pacquiao probably would have done that with Conor McGregor if the fight had come together. But in this era, Pacquiao has never backed down from a fight. He has gone after top opponents time after time, challenged himself for almost 30 years now. And even at age 42, he's still taking on dangerous opponents and a guy who other welterweights didn't want to deal with.
Between the ropes, no, like we focused a lot on what Ugas is like narratively, business-wise, ganyan. But between the ropes, no, what kind of a fighter is Ugas? You know, like what are his strengths and weaknesses? Let's break him down as on a technical level. No, what kind of fighter is Ugas?
When you mentioned that he doesn't go the extra mile to win the fight, he's not trying to look for a big punch. The reason for that is because he doesn't have a big punch. The guy does not have power. Okay, so when you actually see Ugas trying to hurt someone, you will notice one thing that he will try to do. He will try to keep throwing that overhand right. Okay, now supposedly malakas yun, but again, we're talking about Ugas, so it's not all that, even though it's an overhand right. Now, it's going to be a problem if he's going to do this against Manny Pacquiao, kasi si Manny Pacquiao is a southpaw. So from that angle, if you throw an overhand right, it's just a very hard punch to land, okay, against a southpaw. Kasi kitang-kita the angle itself. The moment you throw your hand, i-position mo to throw that overhand right, you will see the punch coming from a mile away. So I don't see Manny Pacquiao getting hit by that overhand by Ugas. And, unless, alam mo naman si Manny, sometimes he likes getting hit. Sometimes he invites himself to get punched. Maybe he would want to test the power of Ugas. Then maybe he can get hit. Or maybe he gets hit clean. We don't know, all right? We don't know. But what I'm confident of, all right, is Ugas will hit him with his best punches, hit him with his overhand rights. Manny Pacquiao won't be bothered. He will eat those punches for breakfast. We're talking about Keith Thurman in his last fight. At 40 years old, he took those big shots from Keith Thurman, who I think hits harder than Errol Spence Jr. That's just me. I'm not sure with Rafe. Okay? But personally, I think punch per punch, he hits harder than Errol Spence Jr.
For me, what sticks out about Ugas is I think he strikes me as he fights a conservative style where he doesn't have that electric activity of even this 42-year-old Manny Pacquiao. He fights at a steady pace, sort of a very traditional well-schooled Cuban approach where it's jab straight, sometimes with that overhand, orthodox fighter, and he to me it's a temperament, it's a conservative style to me, where he's defense first and he's going to protect himself and look maybe to counter, but he not necessarily set up traps to catch Pacquiao coming in or to really to punish Manny if he were to make a mistake, but really just very steady, basic but solid. He can be hard to deal with because he's long and he won't always commit. I think so he's a little bit of a spoiler. That's why I think I agree with JM that he wouldn't necessarily beat a lot of the guys who have just chosen not to fight him, but they chose not to fight him because he will make the fight look a little bit ugly and slow at times. And it's just sort of, they're like, well, that's not good for my career. And then the thing that, look, if you're fighting an older fighter, especially one where we've seen how Pacquiao paces himself now. He did in the Thurman fight. He fights instead of 3 minutes of a round, he fights, in spurts. He'll take his time on the outside, jump in and boom, 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 do a combination, try and score some blows and then get out. The way I think that Spence was planning to try and win this fight was with activity, was to eventually overwhelm and push the older fighter into deep and deeper water where fatigue finally catches up to him late in the fight and maybe break him down, not necessarily to stop him, but to win the later rounds on activity and youthfulness and stamina. Ugas doesn't fight with that motor. He doesn't fight with that kind of pressure. He's not going to take advantage of his youth the way that I think Spence might have in the same matchup against Pacquiao. He's not going to make Pacquiao fight like a younger man than he is. He's gonna let Pacquiao fight at his own pace, and I think that's why ultimately that's a losing position for Yordenis Ugas.
He's really not such a high octane fighter. Itong si Ugas, I've already said kanina na he does not possess dynamite in his hands. Okay? So, so yung sinasabi nga ni Rafe, ito si Ugas he's mahaba, he has height, he likes to stay on the outside, throw the jab, shoot the right hand straight. Very basic. Okay? That's what he does. Another thing that he does na hindi na mention ni Rafe is this guy actually loves to go to the body. Okay? Kapag ka nagdikit yan, you can actually expect Ugas to throw combinations to the body. No, that's what he likes to do. So that pretty much covers it. Si Ugas, it's alam ko sinasabi ni Rafe that he's a very good fighter. Okay? I would take it down a notch. I don't think he is a very good fighter, though. I think he is a good fighter, though. Okay, I'm not saying he's a can. Okay, don't get me wrong. Team Pacquiao already knows what they're getting here, right? And if Manny Pacquiao, if this is going to be his last fight, and this is a good fight for Manny Pacquiao, because kapag pinag-usapan natin ng mga farewell fights, those are fights that you're supposed to win, because nobody ever wants to go out on a losing note. Okay, weaknesses ni Ugas. Unang-una na ito talaga sobrang magpapahirap sa kanya sa laban na to. Okay? He fights on a straight line. All right? He moves forward straight. He moves backward straight. Okay? Ngayon, he knows how to use his jab, he knows how to shoot his right straight. He knows how to keep his distance. Okay? And yeah, that work against much lesser fighters na hindi siya bibigyan ng angle kagaya ni Manny Pacquiao. But will that work against someone like Manny Pacquiao na may mga lumaban na who's fought, of course, someone na mga mas malalaki pa kay Ugas, the likes of Antonio Margarito. Now, sinabi ko kanina, kailangan natin balikan yung Sean Porter fight Kasi sa career nitong si Ugas, that is, I think, the best fighter he's ever fought. Okay? Do you agree with that, Rafe? Because you might see other names.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah.
Walang duda.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on the same page here. Sean Porter was the best fighter na kinalaban ni Ugas so far sa kanyang career. Okay? And it ended via split decision. All right? A lot of people thought Ugas won that fight. Okay? In the end, Porter, yun nga, won via split decision and he landed more punches than Ugas in that fight. Ano ba ang nangyari dun sa laban na yon? Okay? Sean Porter, what he likes to do is he likes to get inside. All right? The problem with Sean Porter is he does not create angles until he is within his comfort zone, hitting range niya, kapag andun na siya sa loob. Okay? So anong nangyari paulit-ulit in that fight? Sean Porter charging in on a straight line, Ugas going back on a straight line. So nakakapuntos si Ugas. All right? And there was even a point in time na yung Porter, even though he is an offensive fighter, ang ginawa na lang ng Porter, siya na lang yung bumalik. Because he knows kapag umatras siya, forward yung Ugas, and then he tries to close the distance in the middle, doon na siya bibira. And then kapag nandun na siya sa loob, ang gagawin niya, that's where he actually throws his combinations. That's when he throws his angles. No? So, sidestep siya, it throws all these different kinds of combinations. Ngayon, will Ugas trouble Manny Pacquiao with that? No! Why not? Kasi Manny Pacquiao does not need to be on the inside to create his angles. Si Manny Pacquiao, he likes to fight on the middle range. Okay? Si Manny Pacquiao, bumabato pa lang ng jab, may angle na. Gumagawa na ng angle yan. Okay? When he throws the left, he is already creating an angle. Pansinin nyo, yung mga fights niya, kay Broner, kay Turman, even though na, he's past na even his younger years, Manny Pacquiao, when fighting unorthodox, pagbato niya nung kaliwang kamay niya, yung lead foot niya, which is yung kanan, okay, nasa 2 o'clock na, sabay. Kasi kumukuha na ng angle yan. And for someone like Ugas na fights on a straight line at babalik, who would backpedal on a straight line, that is disaster for him. Okay? Doon siya yayariin ni Manny Pacquiao. Aatras siya ng derecho, lalaban siya ng derecho, gagawan siya ng angle, sasayawan siya ni Manny Pacquiao, side to side, lateral. Okay? And when you know Manny Pacquiao, if you actually want to hurt this guy, the last thing that you would want to target is his body. Kasi the more you actually touch his body, the more na magtatas ng kamayan, sige, bigay mo pa sa akin. And, I don't think Manny Pacquiao is going to be bothered, by the body punches of Ugas either. He's not the one who is going to stop Manny Pacquiao via body punch. Ginawa na nga ni Keith Thurman yun eh. 'Di ba? 2 years ago. 'Di ba? Ito, power puncher, hindi tumalab. Then are you gonna tell me that Ugas is gonna stop Manny via body punch? Of course not. Of course not. But that's just basically it. I don't see Ugas doing anything spectacular. He does nothing fancy. Ito, minsan, babato ng overhand right. So sobrang wala siyang power. He overloads it kapag ka na iwasan, na out of balance pa siya.
So tingin ko, I think this fight. I think the big wild card will be Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old. What does lightning strike, or just father time comes, you get old overnight? Now he can still win. If that happens, maybe the fight becomes more exciting, more dramatic, because Ugas has some success. And the one thing that, regardless of if Pacquiao has lost another half step or even full step from the last time we saw him, he will still have that just incredible fighting spirit that now comes out most when he's challenged, when someone hurts him a little bit or has some success. And you see, he's not, then all of a sudden the gentleman politician, Senador Pacquiao, who will carry an overmatched opponent and shake his hand at the end of the fight and say nice things to him before and after, that guy disappears, and you see the old school, no fear, banging the clitoris gloves together Pacquiao coming in, to really go after it. So maybe we see a fun fight that's more action packed if Manny is having some more trouble with Ugas. But look, let's be honest. Do I think that will happen? No, I still believe that Pacquiao is close enough to the version he was 2 years ago against Keith Thurman. Right now, 42 na siya. He can still be that fast, explosive, and dangerous. And Ugas doesn't have the style to make the older fighter pay for his age. He's not going to push the pace and pressure and try to break down the older fighter. He's going to try to be conservative and outbox Manny Pacquiao from the outside. And that's not going to work. He's not that good. Floyd Mayweather is the only person who ever managed to do that. And Pacquiao probably had a serious shoulder injury in that fight. So there is, and Ugas ain't no Jeff Mayweather, let alone a Floyd Mayweather. So this it's just not going to. So yes, I think that Pacquiao will be able to land, that little drop step, straight lead left, and how Ugas responds to that will determine the fight. If Ugas sort of does the thing that we've seen Shane Mosley do, Jesse Vargas do, you get caught a few times, nakakagulat, you're like, oh my God, like this guy just hit me real hard. I think I'm going to take it easy, play it safe. Then I think Pacquiao carries him, wins a wide decision. If Ugas tries to respond and adjust and fight back to that a little bit more, then it could be a more exciting, maybe even see more knockdowns, get lucky and see a stoppage win. But in all likelihood, I think it will be a decision victory for Manny Pacquiao, where he looks good. It's not the most exciting fight, but does preserve the chance to maybe come back, whether it's like Jan sa Pilipinas or here in the States, for one more big fight. I think he wants, as crazy as it seems to us mortals, I think Pacquiao wants one gigantic challenge to end his career. He wants a Spence or a Terrence Crawford, the fighters who the boxing fan looks at and says, no, not those guys. They're too young. They're too good. He wants that challenge before he walks away and does whatever he wants to do with the rest of his career. I hope it works out that way. I'd love to see it, even though that's going to be a huge challenge.
At the end of the week, we're gonna have JM Siasat back for a live video. He's gonna be making another appearance with us. Parang ask me anything na boxing related. So if you guys out there, if you have any questions about Pacquiao, about Ugas, about John Real Casimiro, about our Olympians, leave your questions in the comment section of this video. When JM comes back later this week, we're gonna try to get to as many of them as we can. Guys, do you guys have anything you want to plug? Your socials, JM, your YouTube maybe?
Oh yeah, just JM Siasat. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram. Yun lang.
Rafe?
Hey, if you can still find Pacific Rims at National or any of the bookstores, Lazada, if you can find it there, the book is still out. A little over 10. The paperback is 10 years old this year, so may anniversary kami dyan. But and then on social, Twitter is Rafe Bugs, and my bastos na Instagram handle Tio Paeng.
Okay, and for us, if you want more content like this, follow GMA Sports PH, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can also check out our website, gmanews.tv/sports. So thank you to JM Siasat. Thank you, Rafe Bartholomew. My name is Mikel Bolante. Catch us next time, GMA Sports. Thanks, everyone.